live as though I have 1,000 daughters, even though I have none, because every girl is my daughter, and when she sees me or she engages with me, she is looking at me for how to live. So I will live, and I will love, and I will speak, and I will pray as if her heart depends on it. For as long as I can remember, my heart has been wired to encourage and cultivate the self-esteem in girls. And as I've gotten to travel around the world the last few years, working on development projects, I've come to learn something about girls. Forget bombs. Girls are the most powerful force for change on the planet. So why girls? There are a few reasons I believe that girls, especially adolescent girls, hold all the power. And if we invest our time, energy, and capital, they can be a game changer. First of all, girls are agents of change. Education is important for everyone, but it is especially significant for girls because not only does it give them opportunities to things that they normally wouldn't have, but it also tends to have ripple effects across generations because girls who are educated grow up to be mothers who educate their children, who grow up to be mothers who educate their children. The other thing education helps with is that it helps this dichotomy with early childhood marriage. If the longer girls stay in school, the less likely they are to be married. They tend to delay childbirth and have smaller and healthier families. The second thing is people assume girls are being reached, but they're not. The reality is that children's programs typically capture the 0 to 5-year-olds. Youth programs typically capture boys, and women's programs don't typically capture the adolescent girl demographic. The very people that can do the most to affect change and end poverty within a generation. Yet 2 cents, less than 2 cents, of every international development dollar reaches girls, the very group that can do the most to affect change. Number 3, the cost of excluding girls is tremendously high. I want to give you some examples. If India put just 1% more of their girls into secondary school, their GDP would raise $5.5 billion. In Uganda, 85% of girls leave school early. It results in an almost $10 billion loss in income. And if they delayed early marriage and early pregnancy for 1 million girls in Bangladesh, that would add $69 billion to that national income over the course of those girls' lives. The question isn't just why girls. The question is why wait? And I realize we can't all jump on a plane and fly all over the world doing our dream NGO job, but I do believe that there are 5 simple things that we can all be doing that can have a really measurable impact. The first thing is, educate yourself. Learn a few statistics. Let's talk about human trafficking for a second. Human trafficking disproportionately affects adolescent girls. Did you know that there are 27 million women and children in slavery in the world today? That's more slavery than any other time in history. Did you know that human trafficking is a $32 billion a year industry? Did you know that $16 billion of that happens on U.S. soil? Half of all human trafficking happens here in this country. This isn't a them problem. This is an us problem. The second thing that's important to do is educate others and start a conversation. Social media is a great platform for this. We need to be reposting things that we're learning and events that are happening in the world. Let me give you an example. About a year ago, I learned about a story of 2 girls in India, age 14 and 16, that had left their home to walk out to the field to use the bathroom. They never came back. They were found later that day hanging in a tree. They had been assaulted and raped. Not long after I learned about this story, I found myself in one of those really long women's bathroom lines after a movie. You know what I'm talking about. And the woman in front of me was kind of complaining about the line, and so I told her this story about these girls, and she looked at me in horror, and she said, "I will never complain about having the safety of this line to stand in again." I said, "I know, right?" In fact, it's reported that 35% of women and girls in rural India are sexually assaulted as they walk out to the fields to use the bathroom. And that's the reported number. Some think it might be as high as 70%. That's ridiculous. I guarantee you she'll never stand in a bathroom line and not think about those girls. The third thing we can all be doing is supporting fair trade efforts. Be conscious consumers. It's important that we know who's making our products and where they're coming from. There is still a very high amount of childhood labor in the clothing industry, in the coffee industry, and in the chocolate industry. When you support organizations that are fair trade, they've done the vetting for you. They can certify that they're working with companies and groups that don't exploit children. They have good working conditions. They're paying fair wages. And the bonus is that oftentimes these programs give out extra healthcare initiatives or have extra programs to help educate the children. Know where your products are coming from. The fourth thing we can do is donate, both time and money. When we donate time and volunteer with organizations, we're helping them achieve at their highest levels. When we donate our money, it helps programs achieve with a really meaningful impact. And don't think that just because you may only have $5 or $10 that doesn't make a difference. Everything adds up. In fact, a couple of months ago, I was in Uganda working with a school, and I found out that the school fees were $7 a trimester, $21 for that kid to go to school for a year. You know we've all been to dinner and eaten somebody's school fees in one meal. The fifth thing we can do, and I want you to circle star this one, is educate a girl. For every year a girl stays in school, her earning potential increases 10 to 20%. And back to that forced childhood marriage dichotomy, if a girl can stay in school for 7 or more years, she is much more likely to marry 4 years later than she normally would, more likely to have 2 or fewer children, and those children are much more likely to live past the age of 5. I want to look at this idea from a different perspective. We're going to put 30 seconds on the clock, and I want you to think about a little girl you know. "30 seconds. 13 girls were just forced into early childhood marriage. That's 26 girls a minute. In fact, since I've been talking, over 300 girls were forced into marriage, most of them between the ages of 12 and 15. And currently there are 2 countries in sub-Saharan Africa where the average forced childhood marriage age is age 11. I don't know about you, but I don't know a whole lot of 11-year-olds who want to be taken out of school and forced to marry a much older man. That's why it's important to educate girls. Keeping them in school helps prevent things like this, and it's very easy. You hop online, you search organizations that help educate a girl, and any number will come up. It's almost that easy. Stay informed, go social, take action, donate, educate a girl. The more I hear about the oppression and violence against women and girls around the world, especially in situations of human trafficking and girls being denied education or being forced into early marriage, it stirs me. It's tremendously difficult to see and read about these girls and what happens to them. It's very fearful and it's very discouraging. But then I hear it. It's off in the distance like a low rumble, but I hear it. It's the sound of strength and it's the sound of empowerment. And the more I read and learn, the more I hear and see women and girls around the world fighting for peace and strength and equality and safety and education, the louder that rumble gets until it's a roar too loud to ignore. I can't ignore that I was wired with a fire inside me to do whatever I can for our little girls. Imagine what would happen if we educated millions of girls. Imagine what would happen if we educated thousands of girls. Imagine what would happen if we educated just one girl. Every single girl is important. Every time I'm in Nairobi, I leave my apartment and I walk along this alleyway that runs along a slum. And there's this group of girls that always run out to greet me and walk me out to the main street. And a lot of times I'll stop and we'll play or we'll jump rope or we'll just laugh and try and communicate. And all of this happens right in front of a school. But those girls aren't in that school. They can't afford it. But they can't afford not to be. And I can't afford to do nothing. And it doesn't matter where I'm at in this world. When I see these girls, I make a promise to them that I will continue to advocate on their behalf and let people know that they are little superheroes and they're going to change the world, and all they need from us is our support. Because every time I see them, these daughters of mine, I say the same prayer. I will live as though I have 1,000 daughters, even though I have none, because every girl is my daughter, and when she sees me or she engages with me, she is looking at me for how to live. So I will live, and I will love, and I will speak, and I will pray as if her heart depends on it. I want to leave you with the words of my favorite poet, Sarah Kay, called B. If I should have a daughter, instead of Mom, she's going to call me Point B, because no matter where in the world she finds herself, she will always find her way back to me. And I'm going to paint the solar systems on the backs of her hands so that she has to learn the entire universe before she can say, oh, I know that like the back of my hand. And she's going to learn that life will hit you hard in the face, wait for you to get back up so that it can kick you in the stomach. But getting the wind knocked out of you is the only way to remind your lungs how much they love the taste of air. There's pain here that cannot be healed with Band-Aids and poetry. So the first time she realizes that Wonder Woman isn't coming, I'll be right there to let her know that she does not have to wear that cape on her own. Because no matter how wide you spread your fingers, your hands will always be too small to catch all of the pain you want to heal. Believe me, I've tried. And baby, I'll tell her, don't go sticking your nose up in the air like that. I know that trick. I've done it 1,000,000 times. You're just smelling for smoke so that you can follow the trail to the burning house to find the boy who lost everything in the fire to see if you can save him. Or else find the boy who lit the fire in the first place to see if you can change him. But I know she will anyway. So instead, I'll be nearby with an extra supply of chocolate and rain boots, because there is no heartache that chocolate cannot heal. Okay, there are a few heartaches that chocolate cannot heal, but that's what the rain boots are for. Because rain will wash away everything if you let it. I want her to look at the world through the underside of a glass-bottom boat, through microscopes, at the galaxies that exist on the pinpoint of a human mind, because that's the way my mama taught me, that there'll be days like this. There'll be days like this, my mama said. Days where you reach out your hands to catch and all that you're left with are blisters and bruises. Days where you step out of that phone booth to fly and the very people you're trying to save are the ones standing on your cape. Days where your boots fill with rain and you are knee-deep in disappointment. Those are the very days you have all the more reason to say thank you. Because there is nothing more beautiful than the way the ocean refuses to stop kissing the shoreline no matter how many times it is sent away. Child, you will put the wind in winsome, lose some, and you will put the star in starting over and over and over. And no matter how many landmines erupt in a minute, be sure your mind lands on this beautiful, funny thing we call life. And yes, on a scale from 1 to over-trusting, I am pretty damn naive, but I want her to know that this world is made of sugar, and it can crumble so easily. But don't be afraid to stick your tongue out and taste it. And baby, I'll tell her, your mama is a warrior, but she is also a warrior, and you are the child with small hands and big eyes who refuses to stop asking for more. Remember, good things come in threes, and so do the bad things. And always apologize if you've done something wrong. But don't you ever apologize for the way your eyes refuse to stop shining. Your voice may be small, but don't you ever stop singing. For when they finally hand you heartache, when they slip war and hatred under your door and give you handouts on street corners of cynicism and defeat, child, you look them square in the eye and you tell them that they really ought to meet your mother. Thank you.